Coldplay is a Norwegian horror movie from 2006 that a lot of you has probably never heard of. It follows a group of friends going snowboarding in the mountains of Norway when things go wrong. One of them gets into a nasty accident and ends up breaking his leg. The group takes shelter in a nearby abandoned hotel, but as it turns out, it's not as empty as it seems. So it's a pretty typical slasher movie. And fun fact, my dad was actually in Jotunheimen back when they were filming the movie. My dad's a teacher and it was at the same time as summer camp, so he got to see them be set up with all the camera equipment and everything. They had of course closed off the location, so he couldn't exactly wander about on set. But in a small country like Norway, where not a lot happens, it's really interesting to see a movie production firsthand. Or parts of it, rather. But anyway, I wanted to review a movie from my childhood. The movie came out in 2006, when I was but a wee lad, and I remember there was quite a bit of mystery surrounding it. Because we're not exactly known for our big blockbusters, much less horror movies. And as I was just 10 years old, I was far too young to be allowed to watch it, even though it was making rounds in the playground. So it took me a few years before I got around to watching it, and when I finally did, I remember it being pretty damn scary. How innocent I was back then. After rewatching it in order to make this video though, I don't really feel the same way. Not to say it's not scary, but I was never at the edge of my seat, and it simply takes too long for anything to happen. It was also really hard digging up any sort of background information on this movie, as there isn't a lot to be found online and nothing really came with the DVDs. Whatever kind of ancient technology that is. With that out of the way, let's get into it. The movie opens up with a kid running away from someone, followed up by a clip of a couple saying their son disappeared. What a coincidence. The boy gets buried in snow and we get a title card. We then have a quick montage of news stories telling us, the audience, that tons of people have gone missing up in the mountains. They've all gone missing without a trace, but it doesn't seem to deter people as it keeps happening. The movie has some creepy sounding music to set the mood. And this montage honestly feels very similar to the My Bloody Valentine opening montage.
Listen, we're not sure what caused the collapse.
Feels good being an inspiration to others. The montage ends and we are introduced to our main characters. This whole car is just filled with cliche character tropes. We've got the dumb blonde with 0 characteristics. We've got this snarky asshole dating dumb blonde. There's guy who's in love with main character. There's guy who's dating main character. And then we have our protagonist who's basically in charge. While they were working on the script, the director brought out his horror movie cliche checklist and started writing the characters. Also, some of their names are really awkward to pronounce in English, so I will be renaming some of them. I hereby baptize thee Blonde, Toby, Mikael, no, not Michael, Mikael. The E is missing, much like this guy's common sense. Eric, and protagonist. Mikael and Blonde are making out in the back seat, and they're all just talking about relationship stuff. Blonde turns to Toby, and she's like, "What about you, Toby? You getting anything these days?" And like any normal human being would respond, he goes, "Let me tell you, I'm engaged to this baby, and we have sex many times a day," while holding up his hand. This is how people talk nowadays, right? So he basically just told us he jacks off multiple times a day. That's a bit too much information, my dude. So, as we can tell right off the bat, the dialogue in this movie is going to be pretty rough. After a short drive, they arrive at the mountains and start making their way up.
You see how Toby's left behind while the others move in pairs? He doesn't quite fit in, guys.
They continue talking about their relationships, because look, our main characters are #relatable. We also get some really cool wide shots of the mountains that I like. It's one of the best features of Norway, and I'm glad we get to show off for a bit. This is probably what everyone thinks the entirety of Norway is like. Nothing but snowy mountains. They all start snowboarding down the mountain, but oh no, Toby had an accident! His bone is straight sticking out of his leg, so there's definitely a big lack of screaming. Dude's taking it like a champ, although I'd say this derails their trip home. But don't worry, protagonist to the rescue, she's got this. She's going to shove his leg back into place, so she tells him to calm down and to just breathe.
Aim.
Well, that went well. Now it's time to pack up and head back. But oh no, there's no cell phone reception. What do we do? They have a couple ideas. Mikael says, "I can try to get back to the car." But she's like, nah, it will take too long. Eric then says, "I can ski down and get to the nearest town." But again, she's like, nah, it's way too slow, guys. And then, I shit you not, she takes a couple steps upwards and she's like, "Oh hey guys, there are some houses down here." Talk about convenient. And none of them had noticed it until now. No one had done any research on the area, try to maybe plan something in case of an emergency. It's much better to just wing it, guys. It will work itself out. We quickly transition over to the hotel, and after a bit of standing around, they make their way inside by breaking the window. They didn't even try any of the doors, and he didn't even have to unlock it to open it. I think he just really wanted to smash something. It seems like the hotel is abandoned, but someone has left ski lubricant. Is that what it's called? On the counter. So it might not be completely empty. Toby gets placed on the couch and finally gets to rest for a bit while the others try to orient themselves. Protagonist takes the lead and goes, "Blonde, set up the fire so we don't get hypothermia. And Mikhail without the E, go see if you can find some alcohol. Cause you know, our friend here is in excruciating pain." Mikhail, out of nowhere, asks who put you in charge, even though just 5 minutes ago, he was fucking A-okay with it. Yeah, I know he's got a broken leg and is in dire need of help, but I don't want to be bossed around. But then he does it anyway. One hell of a fight you put up, dude. Oh hey, super glue. That will be useful. She now has a genius idea to fucking super glue his leg back together. Good stuff. I get that we're supposed to see that our main character is resourceful and can make the best out of any given situation, but it comes off as other characters just being complete brainlets. No one does anything unless they're explicitly told to do so. Blonde had painkillers in her bag they could have used, but it isn't until it's brought up that she actually does anything with it. It's like no one cares about the poor guy. Once they've fixed up Toby, they start exploring the hotel to try and get the electricity going. They find that someone has taken the emergency fire axe and eventually make their way to the fuse box. We jump back to Protagonist, who's checking the guest book when the door unexpectedly opens. She goes to check it out, and after seeing a shadowy figure outside, Protagonist surmises that, it was probably just the wind. Suddenly the light comes back on, and apparently generic character number 5 is such a tech wizard, they had to do it all off screen. Mikhail and Blonde runs off, while Eric hears a noise around the corner that none of them made. Spooky. And runs back to the group. Meanwhile, Blonde and Mikhail are off on their own, and they find a half burned down room. It's weird that no one bothered to fix up the room after they put out the fire. This scene is pretty pointless overall, it's just more evidence that something is off about the hotel. We get 2 quick jump scares and have a few filler scenes with all the main characters. Need to pan the runtime somehow. We're about 30 minutes into the movie by now, and I must say there's lacking a bit of horror in my horror movie. And that's a big problem with Cold Prey. The first part of the movie is boring. The second part of the movie is stupid. There's simply too much setup and not enough payoff in the end. All the decisions the characters make are only to further the plot and get them separated. I shit you not, they split up 12 times throughout the movie. It doesn't help that the killer can somehow walk through walls and use camouflage when the plot needs him to, and other times he's just completely useless. Anyway, let's get back on track. Everyone is sitting together and fucking around until we find out that no one has written in the guest book for around 30 years. Oh, but hey, look, here's a picture. Aw, look how cutesy wootsy they are. This is just like that one scene from Airplane Mode.
Here you are, sir.
Hey, Wampa, you made it.
Then the director went, it's been a while since Mikhail said something stupid. Quick, say that he's ugly.
He's fuck ugly.
There we go. But it's getting late, so now it's time for all the couples to go sleep together. Blonde and Mikhail, Protagonist and generic guy, and Toby and his hand. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. And in case it wasn't clear enough already by his glistening eyes every time he looks at her, Toby is hardcore crushing on Protagonist. So this is real sad, guys. Guess the only thing left to do is down my drink and jack off. Meanwhile, Mikhail and Blonde find themselves a room and start getting hot and heavy. So nice and cozy under this blanket. Just you, me, and the cameraman. Mikhail wants to go all the way, but she's not quite ready yet. And being the true gentleman that he is, Mikhail respects her wishes and... oh, never mind. They argue and he walks off. Okay, so we need to find a way to split them up, as we need to kill off Blondie before she has any character development. Mikhail needs to stay alive since I still have plenty of stupid lines for him to say. Any ideas? How about we make him storm off immediately when she doesn't want to hook up? Alright, fuck it, that works. Mikhail comes back and we just see the 3 musketeers here. They're helping Toby piss. And he's like, guys, look at my dick. Guys, please look at my dick. I will admit, this was pretty funny. But okay, we did a good job so far. We got Blondie alone, now we can finally start the killings. And I guess he was just sitting right outside the door and listening to them, since he shows up immediately after Mikal leaves. And they do this stupid thing that all horror movies do, where the killer is quicker than the Flash, yet quiet as a mouse. This dude looks like Woon Woon from Game of Thrones. There's no way he's got stealth in his arsenal. Blonde gets attacked, and where did he come from? How did she not see him? We later get to see a similar room, and look at where he's supposed to be standing. So basically he just attacked a legally blind handicapped girl. She puts up a fight and tries to flee. It even seems like she gets away from him, until he teleports in front of her and takes her down. To think all this could have just been avoided if she had simply given him a handy. For shame. And you might be wondering, why does no one notice her cries for help? Because Mikal is now in his emo phase and is blasting music through the speakers. Protagonist moves over to him as Mikal sits and mopes because he wasn't allowed to smash. They talk for a bit and then everyone goes back to sleep. The next morning they make the decision that Eric will attempt to ski down the mountain and get help since none of the phone lines are working. But for absolutely no reason whatsoever, the killer has brought Blonde outside into the cold, and there's a bright red blood trail to her location. Why? Eric obviously sees it and rushes to her side, and through the power of Mario, the killer warps out of the ground and whacks him with a pickaxe. 2 down, 3 to go. We jump back to Mikal and Protagonist, who have split up again. And this name is so stupid. From now on, I'll be calling her, Sophie. They went off to check the fuse box since the lights started flickering, and Toby has been left to his own devices. I must say he's doing miraculously well so far. He might not be running a marathon anytime soon, but he's at least not writhing in agony. But at this point it just seems like they're looking for any excuse to split up. Mikal and Sophie find a door that somehow no one has spotted before now, and venture inside to explore further. There's a whole bunch of things in there that they assume visitors left behind. Must have been a pretty popular hotel in that case. After going through another door, they discover a room that someone has been living in. That's a bad sign. They also find some old newspapers, basically telling the characters what we already know. The boy went missing, his parents went missing, and the hotel has been shut down for 30 years. And just to get some more proof that Mikal is a brainlet, he's like, "It's been shut down for 30 years? But these things aren't 30 years old." What? Tell me what that means, because I can't think for myself. And one thing that bothers me, this headline basically calls it the Devil's Hotel. Okay, but someone owns it and has been trying to sell it with no luck. You're telling me this killer has lived at the hotel for 30 plus years, killing off people whenever he desires, and no one has brought in outside help to check it out. A single police squadron could have cleared this entire hotel in an afternoon. This is Norway. Us regular Joes don't carry guns. And the killer only has a pickaxe at his disposal. Like, yeah, he can teleport, but put a couple bullets in his knees and neck and he's down for the count. I think the biggest crime in this movie is how inept the local police department is. Anyway, they get out of there and go to gather the troops. Sophie goes to pick up Blonde, who still hasn't left her room. I neglected to mention it earlier, but Mikal brought her a breakfast tray that morning. Sophie eats the tray away and opens the door to find a blood trail. Ah, she dead. Meanwhile, Mikal is off looking for Toby since he left his station.
Oh no, more blood. Don't tell me.
Nah, he's fine. And he's like, "Help me up. Why didn't you say anything before now, you dick?" Stupid fake out jump scare. Sophie shows up and they all head back to Blonde's room to check for clues. But before they have time to examine it properly, someone opens the door to the outside and they all run off. They make it into another empty room and barricade themselves inside. They finally give Toby the cliff notes about what's been happening and then bunker down to wait for Eric. We get some more forced conflict and Mikal heads out to look for Blonde. Pretty fucking stupid to split up again, but he did kind of leave her alone. And I sure wouldn't risk my life to go look for her. So yeah, you're on your own, bro. One thing I will give him credit for though, is he actually arms himself instead of just wandering about empty-handed. Good for you, my dude. Could she be in the food storage? We get jump scared by the killer trying to tear down the wall, and Mikal tries to escape. Surprisingly, he outmaneuvers the killer, who heads back inside. Mikhail gets back to the safe zone and he's like, guys, this isn't enough. So he makes everyone sit down to further barricade the door. This is probably the most useful Toby has been in the entire movie. Finally, they found a use for him apart from living bait. And I guess the killer followed them there because he shows up right afterwards and starts hammering at the door. The movie should have ended here, but the killer realized he forgot to turn off the stove and left. Pretty lucky for both the main characters and the runtime of the movie. And for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Mikhail thinks it's a good idea to get out of there and find some skis?
But what about my foot? Fuck your foot. We need to leave him. but I love you.
And Mikhail goes, no, we don't have a chance, and jumps out the window, completely ignoring the fact that he literally survived an encounter with the killer 2 minutes ago. Dude, he couldn't even hit you with his pickaxe while you were standing still. I really dislike how they made him want to abandon his friend here. He's impulsive, not heartless. His motivation doesn't even make sense. He's suddenly afraid because the killer is gigantic? Dude, you already survived one-on-one. Yeah, they probably couldn't have taken him head-on with only 2.5 men, but you still have the numbers advantage. Mikhail basically turned into cinema summary here.
As soon as I realized my life is in danger, I'd be sacrificing everyone here to stay alive.
The director did him dirty, and this literally only happens so they can kill off Mikhail and we can get our final girl one-on-one showdown. And just saying, if they went along with his bright idea of skiing down the mountains wearing only this, hypothermia would kill them long before the killer would. He steps on a bear trap outside the shed and we all know what happens next. Starting to see why he always waited for Sophie to take the lead. Wait, what the fuck? He has superhuman strength? Then why is he even afraid of anything? So yeah, the killer shows up and snaps his neck. Color me surprised. Seeing this, our power couple leaves the safety of the room and runs through the hotel, only to again hide, but this time in the food storage? Time to split up again. Ah yes, you are not a true Norwegian if you don't stockpile skis and ice skates in your shed. She looks for supplies she can use to escape, but is unable to pull out the sled. In pure frustration, she lies down on the sled and whimpers. But what's that? I spy with my little eye a shotgun and a single bullet. Don't waste it now. She gets back to Toby and shares the good news. But instead of just taking the sled and getting the hell out of there, she wants to lure the killer down into the basement to trap him. She turns off the power, gotta set the mood, and hey, turns out Eric is still alive. Not gonna lie, I completely forgot he was even in the movie. Turns out he's also got a mild case of brain damage, so that's unfortunate. In a shocking turn of events, the killer shows up to check why the electricity died down. Toby gets spotted and Sophie jumps out to blast the killer, but before she has time to do so, he turns off his flashlight and she locks him inside. Great, the plan worked perfectly, time to get out of here. But oh no, Eric is still alive in there, we can't leave him. Fuck that, he's on his own. Get down the mountain and then you can come back later with a SWAT team or two. You're helping nobody by getting yourselves killed. But no, baiting out the killer is a much better idea. He opens the door using Eric as a shield and they wasted their only bullet. Should've killed him when you had the chance. He doesn't disappear simply because you can't see him. Oh well. Toby sacrifices himself to buy Sophie some time, so she runs off. Rest in peace, expendable character number 2. Sophie puts on the skis she prepared earlier and tries to escape, but the killer teleports and whacks her in the head. And that's the end of the movie. Thanks for watching my review, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and no, I'm just kidding. She wakes up to find the killer carrying her and the corpses of her friends. She plays dead while he disposes of the other bodies and manages to get the jump on him. We have a quick scuffle and she somehow manages to get in a tug of war with the killer. There's some impressive strength in this group. The killer gets the upper hand, but she pulls off his mask to reveal that the killer was the boy from the opening scene. Gasp, what a twist! And this for some reason seems to stun him, so she takes the pickaxe away from him and after a few attempts, lunges it straight into his chest, and as he plummets into the abyss, it is revealed that his parents were the ones burying him in the beginning, which doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. This could have easily been cut from the movie and nothing would have changed. And with the killer dead, Sophie sits down with the last bit of her strength as the movie ends. So that was Cold Prey. An entertaining but certainly flawed movie. It's got a super generic premise that's been done 100 times before and doesn't really bring anything new to the genre. But to be fair, this was Norway in 2006. At this point in time, we had only gotten like 15 Friday the 13th and 28 Halloween movies. We still had a lot to learn. I really like the opening montage. I'm a sucker for those. But there is a ton of unnecessary filler in the movie that doesn't need to be there. It honestly just doesn't have that much going for it plot-wise. It's a slasher, but it focuses so much on the characters and it takes 40 minutes for our first kill. That's not good enough. With that being said, I appreciate the movie for what it is. Yeah, it has its problems, but it was pretty much a smash hit from Norway's perspective. It got an international release and was picked up in the US. It spawned 2 sequels, which I might cover in the future. The second movie, which follows the aftermath of the first one, since you know, it has an open ending and all. And the third movie, which is a prequel. It won a few film awards, such as Best Female Actor and Best Sound Design, and even before its release, there was quite a bit of hype around it. So by every metric, it was a successful release. But before I end the video, I want to talk about the characters. None of the characters are fleshed out and pretty much just disposable meatbags for the killer. The dialogue is rough, the deliveries are awkward, and the acting is all over the place. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting a whole lot considering Norway is such a small country and we have about 3 mainstream actors, none of which are in this movie. But I think the cast did their best. None of the actors had any real experience before this, and a couple of them never starred in anything else, before nor after. Being catapulted into the limelight like this can't have been easy, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the weaker members definitely got less screen time than the others. I think the main character did a pretty good job and had a successful career since then. The same goes for Toby. He kept his acting career going in later years, and he was probably the only other person who could properly act, which makes it funny that he was sidelined for most of the action, and spent quite a few scenes just sleeping. And then there is Mikael. Yeah, he's not the most amazing actor. His facial expressions are really inconsistent, like in this scene where he's supposed to be distraught but he's just lazily smiling, or other times where he's just being rude for no real reason. Although I will give it to him, he plays the part well and seems to have fun with it. His inexperience shows because he's given so much screen time and he's practically in every single scene.
When you watching TV, I'm gonna be there. Even in your dreams, I'm gonna be there.
And his character only really suffers because he was given all the asshole lines. He's still miles above this useless hunk of cock who had like 5 lines in the entire movie. He got the short end of the stick, but he's easily my favorite character. I wish they didn't kill him off so he could have been maybe brought back in the sequel. Him and Sophie had good chemistry whenever they were on screen together. Alas, it wasn't meant to be, and nowadays he works as a psychologist in Oslo, so good for him. Overall, it is a pretty fun movie. I like the setting. Yeah, an abandoned location is nothing new, but showing off the mountains of Norway is a big plus. They did a pretty good job at making the hotel look gritty, nasty, and run down. Although the killer, who should have been the star of the show, was a bit of a letdown. He terrorizes the cast for most of the movie, moving through walls, picking them off one by one, but then goes down like a complete chump in the end. Killing him was super easy, barely an inconvenience. But despite its problems, I have a soft spot for this movie. It was part of my childhood, and I'm glad I get to talk about it after all these years. And if you're like me and you're fond of slasher movies, you're probably going to enjoy this one. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.